Poštovani prijatelji, uvažene kolege, odneo ga je tamo. Izvinjavamo se na malom zakašnjenju, dakle, standardno u Srbiji znate kako ide sa organizacijom. Veliko mi je zadovoljstvo što mogu da vas pozdravim u ime Instituta za evropske studije i NIN-a, našeg zajedničkog partnera u ovom poslu, i da se zahvalim ljudima iz Fonda za otvoreno društvo Srbije koji evo treću već sesiju koju imamo pomažu finansijski i pomogli su, danas imamo dva vrlo vredna gosta sa nama. Dakle, ja ću vas kratko podsjetiti, ovo je serijal koji smo nazvali Godina izbora, dakle, i koji je iniciran idejom o tome da, kao što znate, od negde jeseni prošle godine pa tokom čitave ove godine biće jedna serija parlamentarnih predsedničkih izbora, referenduma, koje faktički na neki način vrlo propituje samu suštinu Evrope, Evropske unije i uopšte politike mnogih zemalja danas koje su ili članovi Evropske unije ili u vezi sa Evropom. Dakle, mi smo radili do sada predsjednički izbor u Bugarskoj, radili smo parlamentarno u Makedoniji, radili smo predsjedničke izbore u Austriji i radili smo nedavno parlamentarni izbor u Rumuniji, dakle njihove posledice, i ovo je peta debata koju organizujemo. Povod je naravno parlamentarni izbori koji su se održali u Kraljevini Hollandiji polovinom marta, dakle pre nekih mesec dana, i koji su bili vrlo zanimljivi, dakle, iz različitih perspektiva. Pre nego što krenem, pre nego što dam reč današnjim učesnicima, želeo bih da se zahvalim i ljudima iz Privredne komore Srbije koji su nam pomogli, dakle, da danas dobijemo ovu lepu salu, i zaista dugujem veliku zahvalnost našim prijateljima i kolegama iz ambasade Kraljevine Holandije, dakle, i njegove ekscelencije gospodinu Henku Vagdovu koji je prihvatio da danas bude sa nama i da pozdravi učesnike skupa, i naravno moram pre svega da se zahvalim Luku Nimansu koga sam maltretirao u poslednjih mesec dana i koji je pomogao, dakle, da neke od gostiju danas imamo sa nama. Još jednom, zaista vam hvala svima što ste došli i verujem da ćemo imati danas vrlo kvalitetnu debatu. Njome će moderirati i predsedavati naš partner i uvaženi kolega, glavni urednik magazina NIN, gospodin Milan Ćulibrk. U debati će učestvovati od ovim redom, kako smo se dogovorili, Peter Van Os, dakle, uvaženi novinar vodećeg holandskog dnevnika NRЦ Hанделсблад, zatim moj kolega, politički filozof i politički mislilac iz Univerzitetskog koleđa iz Amsterdama, Melvin Schut, i naše kolege, gospodin Zoran Preradovиć, koji je urednik spoljne politike u magazinu NIN, i kolega sa Instituta za evropske studije, doktorand Mилан Игрутиновиć. Još jednom vam hvala svima i zamolio bih, pre nego što kolega Ćulibrk uzme reč, gospodina Henka Vagdola da nam se obrati i pozdravi skup. Your Excellency, please. Hvala.
Thank you very much, Dr. Đurković. Thank you for organizing this, and thank you for allowing us to be part of this. And thank you for making it possible for us to suggest some of the Dutch participation in this panel, to which I am very much looking forward. I'm not going to make many comments. I will sit there, I will listen, and will try to restrain myself from interfering, but you never know what happens. Obviously, as Dutch embassy, we have been following the Dutch elections very closely. That's what an embassy does. But it was quite unique this year to see that not only we ourselves were following these elections so closely, but everybody was. Also in Serbia, we had some Dutch politicians making the headlines here in Serbia in the run-up to the elections. Which, to be honest, is something which I haven't witnessed before. Elections coming up in Italy, France, Germany, even the United Kingdom. The Dutch elections were seen as an indicator of where Europe is now heading. Obviously, European countries face similar challenges, and there is a certain similarity in the public debate across countries. But the context in each of our member states also differs. if only because of different electoral systems. The results of the elections in one country will therefore not necessarily be replicated in another. Nevertheless, the results of several pro-European parties in my country show that people in the Netherlands recognize the importance of European integration. And that's encouraging. As a diplomat, I'm not supposed to make political remarks. I won't do this, but this is encouraging. Now, if you came here today to hear about the detailed plans of our new government, I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. We have a system of coalitions. We always have coalition governments. Political parties take weeks, sometimes even months, to interpret the results of the elections and to put together a government which will be able to express the will of the electorate and stay in power for the full 4 years. In the new parliament, no less than 14 parties are represented. The largest party, the party of our Prime Minister Rutte, received only little over 20% of the vote. It's the one largest party. For a viable coalition that will command a majority in the lower house, but also in the Senate, which has a different composition, we will need 4 parties at least. And that means that party leaders are negotiating, compromising, trying to find common ground, and it will take a while. We cannot predict what the outcome will be of all these talks, all these negotiations. We cannot predict the real priorities of the new government. But in this system, in this compromise, this consensus-based system, we can say that really large policy shifts hardly occur. It's always somewhere around the middle. That's also encouraging. Europe is facing a number of big challenges. Both in the Netherlands and in Serbia, it is important for European integration to make a difference in people's everyday lives. If those benefits do not materialize, or if the integration process loses touch with citizens, it will not work. It becomes more and more important to address the real concerns of real people. The task for our new government, as for any other government in the European Union, is to make sure that exactly that is done, that Europe addresses real concerns of real people. Finally, a brief word on the Western Balkans. Regardless of what our new government will look like, regardless of which coalition will be there in the end, stability and prosperity in this part of Europe, in the Western Balkans, will remain crucial for the Netherlands. We are an open economy. We will also benefit from improvements in the investment climate in Serbia and in the surrounding countries. Improvements being the result of reforms in the framework of EU integration. So whatever the outcome will be of negotiations on government formation in the Netherlands, whatever the outcome will be of the debate today here in Belgrade, we will remain committed to the European path of Serbia. I will leave it there. I'm looking forward to an interesting and lively debate, and I hope you will enjoy the discussion. Thank you.
Ja ću vam sad pročitati jednu ekskluzivnu vest koju sam dobio pre nego što sam ušao u ovu kancelariju. Dakle, holandska kraljica Beatrice zatražila je od Marka Rutea, lidera konzervativne Narodne partije za slobodu i demokratiju, da formira kabinet koji će imati podršku antiislamističkog populiste Geerta Wildersa. Rute će predvoditi vladu koalicije desnog centra koju čine njegovi liberali, demohrišćani Maksima Verhagena, a čije imenovanje bi trebalo da usledi u toku naredne nedelje. Ova manjinska vlada će imati podršku Wildersove partije za slobodu koja u vladu neće ući. Vlada je već saopštila da planira da u Holandiji na Wildersov zahtev zabrani burke i druge vidove islamskog potpunog pokrivanja žena i da namerava da državni budžet u narednih 5 godina smanji za 18 milijardi evra, da ograniči priliv imigranata i poveća broj policajaca. Samo problem je što je ova vest objavljena 9. oktobra 2010. godine, tako da kad pogledamo sa ove vremenske distance od 6,5 godina, vidimo koliko se stvari ponekad jako slične, a ponekad i jako različite. Šalu na stranu, dakle ono što poslednje mi u Srbiji znamo da je bukvalno 10 dana nakon izbora obelodanjeno da se dosadašnji holandski premijer dogovorio sa liderima još 3 partije da pokušaju da formiraju koaliciju za novi sastav vlade, ali je priznao da postoje ogromne razlike koje bi trebalo prevazići pre tog konačnog dogovora. Kao što je njegova ekscelencija već rekla, očito je sada već da će morati da se pravi vlada sa 4 partnera. Koliko je to komplikovano, kako će to da funkcioniše, dokle su međuvremeno stigli pregovori, kako mediji u Holandiji, kako akademska javnost gleda na sve to nakon izbora, čućemo od naših uvaženih gostiju iz Holandije. Ja bih uvažene paneliste zamolio da u prvim uvodnim obraćanjima ne dužim od 10-12 minuta, da nam daju presek stanja šta se trenutno dešava, kakve su njihove procene, kuda će stvari dalje odvijati. Za početak kolegu Pitera Van Osa, novinara Hhandelsblada, bih zamolio da nam da jedan prikaz aktualne situacije i kako on vidi Holandiju tokom te kampanje i naročito sada nakon kampanje.
These are the 3 political leaders. Well, we have a few political leaders, as Henk just explained. We have many parties, but these are 3 main players. And the one in the middle is saying, later on, I want to be prime minister. Somebody has to lead, and the other 2 are very childish. They don't want to debate each other. Well, in reality, it is true that they didn't want to, well, your prime minister, president and prime minister didn't want to debate anybody, I understand, but they also didn't want to debate each other. So after this little clip, this is when they're young, and they say, one of them says, I want to be prime minister. Somebody, and then you hear the voice of the real politician saying, somebody got to lead the country. After this, a father of one of the little kids sent the VVD the message that this ad would be on television. So the VVD, the Liberal Party, well, the Free Market Liberal Party, came out with an ad saying, well, but the guy from the left, the one who ran away, he became prime minister. You still have to see if you get one. So this is, and then you will think, do people like that? Are people interested in this kind of campaigns? Yes, they are. So things are going well in the Netherlands. 82% of the people who could vote turned out. So we had a record high turnout. Do they like those debates? Yes. It's the same amount of people that watch the Superliga football, that watch the political debates. So people like that. It's not that strange to have ads like this. Then the results, I think, we'll get later. You get to later on. But you already heard from His Excellency. It's the VVD, the biggest party, only had 21% of the votes, and these Wilders that we all talk about in the whole of Europe only had 13% of the votes. Okay, so is that a historical election result? Well, as a journalist, you always say something is historical, right? It's fascinating and historical, but it wasn't so historical. Maybe the only real interesting point here was that the Labour Party lost so many votes. On the other hand, those votes went to another leftist party called the Green Left. So it wasn't that. They can also come back. Maybe they stay away. Who cares? Their programs look pretty much the same. Is there something, I look at my sheet because otherwise I'm afraid I talk too long, that's a problem, right? Yes, are there some sign of the times? Yes, this party of Wilders, you're probably all interested in, we're in a very small but committed audience, so I understand that you probably know a few facts of Dutch politics, and especially about this man Wilders. He is, although we like to see him in a European perspective, and I understand that, and especially as a committed audience interested in politics, you like to take a step back and broaden your horizon, right? The problem with that is that if you broaden your horizon, you don't see anybody right in front of you anymore, if you understand what I mean. So Mr. Wilders, yes, he looks a little bit like other populist right-wing leaders, or populist leaders in Europe, but he's also an exceptional case. For example, banning the Quran man, what was a serious proposition by him, we haven't seen it anywhere in Europe yet. So not only banning the Quran, it's forbidden to have it in your home. Okay, so that is a problem. So he's absolutely unworkable. So nobody is seriously thinking about forming a government with this man or his party. On the other one, there are some exceptional things about him that we Dutch tend to see as quite normal, but you as foreigners, I understand you kind of find this interesting. I find it fascinating too. Well, the most fascinating thing about Dutch politics, we won't talk about it now, is that we have a party for the animal rights. Only some province in India has a party for animal rights, but we won't talk about that. But about Wilders, there's a special thing that he is like a champion of gays. You don't see that very often among populist leaders, right? He's champion of Israel. He favors the most radical solution proposed by the current Israeli government, by the way, but still regarded as quite radical in an international respect. He proposed to have a tax on whales. You already talked about it, the whales, okay. Well, maybe he's Vucic in his wilder years, right? He said some nasty things about the Islam too, so you kind of like know about the attitudes. Just to round off, yes, I think I have to round off, right? A few historical facts that are always very interesting to understand Dutch politics. One of them is that coalition governments, if you combine the seats of the parties that form the government, they never win elections. They only won twice after the Second World War. And after the Second World War, we had a government on average every 3 years. So every 3 years we have a new government, and only twice the Labour coalition in the 70s with Den Uyl as Prime Minister. You don't have to remember this, of course, but he won seats. His coalition won seats. And a government we call Purple One. It was a government that looked very much like the one that lost big time this time. So with the free market liberals and the Labour Party, which sounds like a natural alliance, right? Well, they once did this very successfully in the 90s, and they won seats altogether. But it's something in Holland that never happened. So again, now it didn't happen. The coalition lost big time. Then you would maybe ask, but I think my academic colleague will say much wiser things about this, but what is the cleavage in Dutch politics? What is the central issue, the thing that divides them? And I think it's, you can talk about this for ages, of course. It's not so much socio-economical anymore. This government was quite successful economically, while they are standing for very different approaches towards the free market or towards the economy or the organization of your economy. You could say it's an attitude. And one attitude is the glass in Holland is half full, right? We're doing fine. We're a rich nation, a very rich nation, very lucky in many aspects. We don't have to spend any money on defense because we think America does it for us. Okay, shouldn't say that maybe, but there are a few things that we're very lucky and blessed with. The parties that would say the glass is half full is this Liberal Party. You saw this little ad. The Liberal Party, the Free Market Liberal Party, that's a complicated with liberal, but the Free Market Liberal Party had an ad saying optimist, pessimist, and they crossed, they made a red mark on optimists. So like, we are optimists. There are more optimists. The Labour Party is an optimistic party. Well, they lost almost all their seats. Green Left is an optimistic party. And the Democrats, Democrat 66 is called, and then we have a Christian Union. You could maybe, well, that's difficult. They think we're all rotten because they are Protestants. Then you have the ones that say the glass is half empty. Of course, leaded by Mr. Wilders, who thinks we're under threat, right, on a permanent threat, by immigrants, also by the integration of the EU, the encouraging signs of the ambassador just mentioned. We're under threat by corrupt elites. Basically, all those parties think so. So we have Denk, we have Wilders, we have the Socialist Party, the SP. It's different from Labour. We're under threat, in their view, we're under threat by neoliberal consensus, right? We have 50 plus. We're under threat by young people. 50 plus is for the elderly, right? That think that their pensions are being taken away. Well, in reality, but that's something else. They are the richest group in the Netherlands. Anyhow, you also have the Animal Rights Party. We're under threat by climate change, right? So they're the two main poles are the optimistic ones and the ones that feel Dutch and Holland is under threat. Thank you for this.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I have to say, coming from Amsterdam, I felt right at home with grey skies and a drizzle. Temperature not much like the Caribbean I wanted to be, but wonderful. So I feel at home. I've been asked to say something about the Dutch election system, about the party political system, about the campaign, about the importance of the elections for the Netherlands, about the importance of the election for Europe, and about the consequences and prospects for Holland's position in the European Union. And we'll see if I can do that in 12 minutes. Okay, briefly, the system. What sort of system does the Netherlands have? The Netherlands has a system of proportional representation, and it has two chambers, a lower chamber and a higher chamber. The elections were actually for the lower chamber, which is where the politics is supposed to be fought out, and the higher chamber, the upper chamber, is supposed to be the place of reflection, a bit like the House of Lords. It's not supposed to be political, but it's become increasingly political in the last couple of years, and this means that, in fact, for the formation of a government, having a majority in both houses is more important now than it used to be in the past. Also, the Netherlands does not have a binding referendum, but it has had an advisory referendum introduced, and this will come up later on. The political parties. What sort of political parties are there in the Netherlands? Well, there is an enormous range of political parties, both left, right and middle. But I think if you keep in mind that there are basically political parties that never govern, whether they're on the left or whether they're on the right, and there are several parties that always or almost always are part of the government that are in the middle, it makes some sense to speak about a permanent semi-government in the middle and a permanent semi-opposition to the left and to the right. And that permanent semi-opposition to the left and to the right, the Freedom Party on the right and the Socialist Party on the left, not to be confused with the Labour Party, actually have a tremendous amount in common, including their skepticism about the EU and about immigration, particularly Muslim immigration, which was actually launched as a political issue in the Netherlands by the Socialist Party in the early 1980s. This is also you might say, frequently called the populist fringe on that more as well in a moment. So, as my colleague, the previous speaker, pointed out, governments do not change much in the Netherlands. The ambassador also said this, but that's basically because governments are usually formed as a coalition from a semi-permanent group of politicians in the middle, and that, I think, is also part of some of the problems that keep on dogging Dutch politics. On that too, more later. The campaign. Well, the campaign was fought on the so-called populist themes of immigration and, to a lesser extent, the European Union. Immigration is very much intertwined with the internationally recognized important idea of identity. What does it mean to be Dutch? What does it mean to be a citizen? Is it still relevant to be a citizen? Are we consumers in a global village, or do we perhaps have other obligations? Do we need to participate as citizens in governing ourselves, or can we simply accept rights, human rights that are guaranteed to us, maybe a respectable system of law, independent courts, and so on and so forth? Is that enough? Because if that's enough, perhaps it doesn't exactly matter where those courts are situated, and perhaps it doesn't exactly matter who is staffing those particular courts. But if it is relevant what our identity is, and if participation in a more republican, small r sense is in fact as important to good government as the respect for human rights, then the idea idea of the individual as a consumer of all sorts of things, including economic growth, and participating in a global village is much more problematic. The importance of this election for the Netherlands, well, I think you can read this election in two ways. The standard way in which it has been presented, and you have read in the newspapers undoubtedly, is this election has been a victory for the anti-populists. After all, Mr. Wilders and his Freedom Party did not come out on top. This was supposed to be the signal that the populist revolt started with Brexit, continued with Mr. Trump, had been stopped, and so on and so forth. On the other hand, I think there is also a case to be made that this election represented, in fact, a victory for populism. Why is that? Well, let's look at the results. Mr. Wilders did win. He won several seats, and the leading party, the Liberal Party, the Free Market Liberal Party, who offers the Prime Minister, they actually lost, and they lost a lot. Also, when you look at the rhetoric of the political parties, the rhetoric of the political parties shifted decidedly in Mr. Wilders' direction. Mr. Rutte, the Prime Minister, the leader of the free market liberal parties, was only able to maintain pole position despite his massive loss, because that's what it was in terms of seats, by adopting a lot of the rhetoric of Mr. Wilders. Same goes for the other main winner in the election, the Christian Democrats. The Christian Democrats adopted a lot of the anti-immigration and in fact anti-Muslim rhetoric of Mr. Wilders. Also quite interesting on this point is that the Protestant Party, which is a very small, quite conservative and consistent party in the Netherlands, for the first time came out with an election manifesto that explicitly spoke about anti- or de-Islamization of the Netherlands. This is quite revolutionary. They've never done that before, and the only other political party in the Netherlands that had used that particular language up to that point had been Mr. Wilders. And for an establishment party to go that far is, I think, quite significant. So, what are we to make of that? Well, I would say on that particular point that the rhetoric of Dutch politics has most definitely, at a minimum, shifted in the direction of Mr. Wilders and of what is broadly called the populists, whether they're of the left or of the right. And the question then is whether this is a beginning of a policy shift, or whether it is in fact a way to end or prevent or to stop a policy shift. I don't know. That's something for you to think about. What it also does is it puts on the agenda the question, what exactly is populism? Because it now turns out that the main political parties, certainly the parties that have won, either by becoming the main party, the Free Market Liberals, or by winning a lot of seats, such as the Christian Democrats, have adopted a lot of this language. And if populism means being anti-establishment, then it seems that the two of the main establishment parties have themselves become anti-establishment, which is somewhat strange. Or does populism rather mean demagoguery? Well, if it means demagoguery, if it means being vulgar, then there is another problem, which is that the main new party that came into the parliament with these elections was quite a feat. It's a party called the Forum for Democracy. And the Forum for Democracy is a party of intellectuals, led by an intellectual, and it has well-supported arguments against mass immigration, against the European Union. It discusses the problems with Muslim assimilation, all of the populist points, but it does so in a very elitist way, supported by elite members of Dutch society. So, again, what exactly does populism mean in this particular context? Then, what are the reasons for populism? Does populism come out of the blue? Well, it turns out that the ideas that are behind populism, particularly the problems with immigration and Muslims, have been addressed not only by the Socialist Party since the 1980s, but also most famously by Pim Fortuyn and his revolution about 15 years ago, which led to his assassination. And arguably, it is the case that problems that are experienced as very real problems by large segments of the population, turns out, for example, that opinion polls consistently show that about 80% of the Dutch people have problems with the non-assimilation, or as they experience it, of Muslims in their society. About 80% of the Dutch population thinks that mass immigration has been a mistake. It turns out that those particular problems have perhaps not been picked up sufficiently enough in the last 15 years, and hence there is an opening for the populist parties. There is an opening for a change. And I think in that respect you may conclude that the Dutch political system shows what my political hero Alexis de Tocqueville called a discrepancy between the pays légal and the pays réel. So on the other hand, the state as it exists legally, including the parliamentary system and the political parties that have grown in that political system, they represent a Netherlands of yesteryear, whereas the problems widely felt by the population are not represented or expressed or discussed in the way that they are discussed at home in Parliament. And arguably this is because the system does not sufficiently translate the discussions at home into the parliamentary chamber. So another reason for the populist concern that people might have is the power that has been transferred to the European Union. According to the European Union itself, the European Commission, about 70% of new legislation originates within the European Union. For a country like the Netherlands, which is a member of the Euro, this influence is much more significant still. This is because not only has the Netherlands lost control of monetary policy, but it has also arguably lost much control of fiscal policy as a result of having to prop up the euro. Now, why is this a problem? It is a problem because, as in other European countries, the focus of politics is for the ordinary citizen, for the people still in The Hague. So if 70% of your legislation does not come from the place where you focus your politics, that effectively means that you have depoliticized a lot of your policy. And that also means that the concerns of ordinary citizens, which they want to see addressed, cannot in fact be addressed politically. This creates frustration. I'll just give you 3 examples on this point. There has been a major conflict of interest for the Dutch finance minister, Mr. Dijsselbloem, who was the chair of the Eurogroup and therefore decided that he was going to let the interests of the euro prevail, arguably, over the interests of the Netherlands. The loss of seats of the Labour Party, I think, has to a large extent been the result of this. The voters for the Labour Party did not want the cuts, the budget cuts that Mr. Dijsselbloem instituted, and that were necessary in order to have the Netherlands follow the rules set by Brussels. And of course, Mr. Dijsselbloem, as chair of the Eurogroup, could not afford to be seen to be flouting the rules that he was trying to impose on everybody else, particularly on the southern countries. We've also had the ignored referendum on the Dutch Constitution, on the European Constitution. I think it was in 2005 that the Dutch rejected the European Constitution. It was is quite clear that the Dutch political elite couldn't care less. The treaty was passed anyway under the name of the Lisbon Treaty, and to add insult to injury, there was an advisory referendum on the EU agreement with the Ukraine, and that particular referendum, which the result said that the Dutch did not want that particular treaty, that was ignored as well. So if you want to ask where does the populist discontent come from, I think that it's not easy to miss if you look for it. What is the relevance of all of this for the Dutch, of the Dutch elections for Europe? What is the importance of this? Well, I think the only way it is possibly important is if the special set of circumstances that led to this situation in the Netherlands can somehow be compared to the situation in other European countries. So to that extent, there is a broader relevance. I do think that there are, in fact, three such wider dynamics. I think that you can generalize point number one, which is that in multiple European countries, there are political structures from a bygone era. I think something like that is also the case in the UK, for example, maybe arguably also in France. Maybe we also see it in a different way in Germany, where the Germans are absolutely still obsessed, or at least their political classes are, with the war that took place 70 years ago, making it very problematic for them to address problems that are felt or even discussed. Because my German friends tell me that many things cannot even be discussed in German society as a result of World War II. So there is a hangover from the past in terms of political structures that presents current problems being addressed. I think that's something that is the case in the Netherlands, and that can be generalized to other countries. Secondly, I think that the depoliticization of a lot of political problems by the transfer of power of decision-making from national capitals, national parliaments, where political life remains focused, to Brussels, which is beyond the horizon of ordinary citizens, I think that is something that also applies to other European countries. And thirdly, last but not least, I think, of course, that the concerns about mass migration, and not just about Muslim migration, but within mass migration, particularly about Muslim migration, and the concerns about economic uncertainty as a result of globalization, I think that that is a problem within the Dutch elections that is also something that applies in several other countries. And in fact, I think one thing that you should consider is that the situation that we are currently in presents nothing less than the problems resulted with a regime change. And by regime change, I mean a change from basically 19th century style self-government, which is the fiction that is maintained we have in Western Europe. We have a parliamentary democracy, we have citizens, people vote, there is national self-determination, and the actual, as I would call it, the fact of having a internationalized technocracy, which may or may not be benevolent. It's probably benevolent, but it consists of bureaucrats who operate within a broad framework of the rule of law and human rights. So on the one hand, you have the idea that we still have a representative democracy, national self-determination, politics organized around a regime of self-government. And on the other hand, you have, at the very least, the rise of a regime consisting of an international bureaucracy that operates within, arguably, the rule of law, although, of course, the Euro bailouts and the flouting of the Dublin Accords raise a lot of doubts about that, but broadly within the rule of law and with a lot of support for human rights, creating a type of consumer without borders. And I think the quote-unquote populist revolt is against this particular regime change. It is an argument for a return to self-government, not just in name but in fact. So, final remarks. What will be the consequences of this election for the position of the Netherlands in the EU? Well, I think very much that depends on whether the rhetorical shift that I think I've seen in the election campaign, whether that will lead to a policy shift or whether it is in fact just an excuse not to have an actual policy shift. Which direction it's going to go, I don't know. That's something that I will leave up to you. I also note that there is growing opposition to the euro. How will that develop? When will people find out how much the euro actually costs them? Financial analysts tell me that the euro has cost the average Dutch citizen 20,000 euros already per head of the population. If the euro is to continue, it will have to turn into a transfer union, and that will have a much more significant financial consequences. Still, will the Dutch actually pay for that? I have my doubts. Then the consistent discontent with Muslim migration. What about that? Which direction will that go? I think that the Dutch are really fed up with the non-assimilation of Muslims, and also with the large amount of migrants that are basically dumped on them without their consent. And that leads me to the final point about that, which is that when will the Dutch realize that the only way that they can change these main policy issues, namely mass migration and the euro, the only way they can change that is if they fundamentally alter their relationship with the EU. And this is because these two policy areas are in fact heavily intertwined with EU competencies. Now, this is, of course, an open question, and there would be a cost, certainly, to a transition to a different arrangement with the European Union. Thank you.
Ono što sam ja hteo da ovde pokažem u nekoliko primjera, to je zapravo veza holandskih izbora i neke dinamike koja je uočljiva kroz te izbore sa širom evropskom politikom, imajući u vidu da ako i postoji korelacija, možda ne postoji kauzalna veza. Dakle, trendovi u Holandiji, ako su slični nekim trendovima u drugim državama, nisu nužno povezani, ne trpe nužno isti pritisak. Mi smo prošle godine imali Brexit krajem juna, imali smo dolazak Trumpa početkom novembra. To su dva događaja koja se u zapadnoj štampi, pre svega anglofonoj, što se označavala kao seminalni događaj koji su najavili taj rast desnog takozvanog populizma. Onda se posle pitanja šta je desni populizam zapravo, Jan Werner Miller je dao neke fine odgovore, napisao je knjigu koja se prevodi kod nas, pa ćemo i mi se detaljnije upoznati s tim. Ono što sam hteo da pokažem, to je negde praktičnija posledica. Dakle, ono što je kratkoročno negde predvidljivo i kratkoročne posledice tih stvari po Holandiju. Holandija je bila veliki šampion ulaska Britanije u evropsku zajednicu početka 70. godina iz ekonomskih, trgovinskih razloga, iz određenih intelektualnih veza. Ona je imala taj atlantistički okvir, ali pre svega zato što bi kroz ulazak Britanije mogla da mogu reći teško kontroliše Francusku i Nemačku, ali da uvede još jednog velikog igrača koji ima moć i kroz svoju nuklearnu snagu i kroz članstvo u Ujedinjenim nacijama u Stalnom savetu bezbednosti, da prosto bude deo određenih koalicija koje se svaki dan naravno pomeraju, kako bi negde ublažila moć i mogućnost dogovora Francuske i Nemačke. Danas je tome kraj. Dakle, izlazak Britanije, ne samo Holandiju, nego čitav niz drugih manjih država stavlja u poziciju da je broj velikih igrača manji i da dogovor dva najveća igrača zapravo u Evropskoj uniji, to su Francuska i Nemačka u budućnosti, i kroz pravila glasanja u Evropskom savetu i kroz ostale institucije stavlja u vrlo, vrlo težak položaj. Dakle, bit će potrebno po nekim proračunima kod 13 uslovno rečeno malih država, ne računajući Španiju i Italiju, kako bi se neki dogovor između Francuske i Nemačke preinačio, promenio, izgurao na drugu stranu, što je već dovoljno teško raditi. Postoje regionalne razlike, ekonomske razlike, partijske razlike, mi to često zaboravljamo. Tako da Brexit, izlazak Britanije, načelno košta male države, eventualnog saveznika, bar u nekim temama. Znači, to iz holandske vizure pre svega. S druge strane, košta ih u finansijskom smislu. Dakle, iza Britanije će ostati kakva takva rupa u budžetu, koju će najverovatnije popuniti najbogatija članica. Holandije jeste jedna od njih i oni razmišljaju u tom smeru da će morati još više finansijski da doprinesu zajedničkom budžetu u narednom periodu od 2020. godine. Kada su izbori Od 2002. godine su prvi izbori koji su desili nakon punog mandata vlade. Znači za 15 godina su prvi nevanredni izbori zapravo. Tako da su oni bili očekivani, ljudi su mogli pripremiti na vreme i zapadna štampa i naša naravno je bila fascinirana negde fenomenom Wildersa i bila fokusirana na upravo to. Da li će rast desnog populizma, kako je bio percipiran, se pretočiti u njegov dobar rezultat, tešku pobedu zbog prosto političkih odnosa koji su zbog načina glasanja i koalicijnih priroda vlada, nije bilo nikakve šanse da on postane, možda bude pobednik na izbora pojedinačno, ali ne da bude član vlade ili da bude dominantna partija. I onda smo, čini mi se, negde promašili ono što se zapravo glavno dešavalo, što će se vratiti na kraju. Mi ne pratimo toliko političku scenu u Holandiji, pa sam hteo da ovde prikažem otprilike odnos 13 partija, stvari 12 je ovde koje su prošle cenzus i koje su ušle u parlament, odnos prema Evropi, prema Europskoj uniji i možemo ih negde grupisati negde 4 grupe. Prva je naravno, mislim, partija Slobode, Wildersova partija koja ima program na celu jednu stranu. I što se tiče Europske unije, program kaže jednu rečenicu da Holandija ponovo bude nezavisna, stoga izađemo iz Europske unije. Dakle, to je Nexit, kako bi se reklo prema Brexitu, zahtev za referendumom izlazak iz Europske unije. Imamo drugu partiju koja je Forum za demokratiju, koju je Melvin Skhut pomenuo. Ona je čini se formirana prošle godine, takođe se svrstava u desni populizam i kada računamo možda Wildersov rezultat, možda bi bilo dobro računati i nju kao partiju koja negde nosi tu vrstu ideje sa sobom. Ona se takođe zalaže makar za referendum o izlasku iz Europske unije. Prosto negde sužavanje politike slobodnog protoka ljudi unutar Europske unije, pogotovo prema migraciji. Dakle, jedan, iskren, sad već klasični desni stav prema toj politici koja se prosto nametnula kao tema. Sljedeća grupa partija se zalaže, ono što bismo grubo rekli, jačanje međuvladinog principa odlučivanja. Dakle, dva principa, međuvladini i komunitarni. Međuvladin princip favorizuje nacionalne države, nacionalne institucije na uštrb centralnih institucija u Briselu. Sad, ovde su 4 partije, poređene su po snazi u novom parlamentu, s tim što one naravno različite teme gađaju i smatraju da bi nacionalne države treba da se pitaju više na više različitih tema. Socijalistička partija koja je uspela da pokupi deo levih glasača nezadovoljnih partijom rada ili laborističkom partijom, smatra da bi trebalo ovakvu Evropsku komisiju, za koju smatraju da se preširila, da je uzela sebi previše mandata da se bavi politikom, da bi trebalo raspisati referendum i prosto na referendumu odlučiti da li Holandija još spremna da podržava ovu i ovakvu Evropsku komisiju. Hrišćanska unija koja je desnija od hrišćansko-demokratskog apela, ona se takođe zalaže za ograničavanje nadležnosti Brisela, pre svega Evropske komisije, ali zalaže se za formiranje jezgra-EU. To je ono kern Europa što smo slušali zadnjih meseci kao ideja koja često dolazi iz raznih nemačkih krugova i koja je već ušla u rečnik u Briselu kroz jedan od onih tačaka, 5 tačaka koje je Jean-Claude Juncker ponudio kao teme za razmišljanje budućnosti Europske unije. Dakle, vidimo kako se holandska politika zapravo adaptira i kako i ona na neki način tvori podelu, odnosno scenarije daljeg razvoja Europske unije. Reformistička politička partija je, kažem, verska partija kalvinista. Meni je možda najveća fascinacija zapravo holandske politike. To je partija čiji website ne radi nedeljom. Zato što verujete nedelj dan za odmaranje i nešto što je drama možda potpuno neverovatno, ali u Holandiji je to prosto jedna potpuno legitimna politička opcija. Ona se zalaže načelno za uniju više brzina, dakle integracija na onim temama na kojim određene zemlje to požele, dakle fleksibilniji okvir unutar Europske unije i izbor na nacionalnom nivou šta mi želimo od Europske unije, praktično Europska unija a la carte. Četvrta partija ovde u ovoj grupi je partija 50+, to je partija Ujedinjenih penzionera Holandije, ajde tako da je nazovemo, koja je odlično prošla na ovim izborima i koja zapravo nosi pre svega fiskalni konzervativizam, zato što prosto brinući se za penzije, za socijalnu poziciju, iz te perspektive želi da prosto očuva stečene pozicije unutar Europske unije. Ona je protiv proširenja Europske unije, što naravno negde pogađa nas. Ona se zalaže čvršću eurozonu, dakle za veću kontrolu unutar eurozone, za one članice koje nisu za eurozonu, kako bi se to reklo, oni pre svega misle na Grčku naravno, oni ne treba da budu odnos mora se relaksirati, mora se omogućiti tim zemljama da izađe eurozone bez nužnog izlaska iz Europske unije. Treća grupa partija u kojoj se već nalaze partije koje će verovatno tvoriti i buduću vlast, to je prvo Narodna partija za slobodu i demokratiju premijera starog, verovatno i novog Marka Rutea. To je partija koja, nazvao sam to selektivno jačanje nadležnosti Unije. To je također jedan od onih skupova koje je Jean-Claude Juncker negde opisao kao mogući scenarij. I sad naravno partije se razlikuju u tome šta one zapravo žele od Europske unije, mada ima nekoliko tema koje se provlače. Migracije su recimo jedna od tih tema, jer postoji rašireno shvatanje da desnica, ako želi nacionalnu kontrolu granica, više proevropske partije, odnosno pro-EU partije ili levica, oni žele da to bude u domenu Europske unije, ali žele da to bude jače, žele da to bude čvršće prosto i žele da osnaže nadležnosti Unije u tom smislu, ali naravno da oni tvore prosto politiku kontrole granica, što onih spoljnih na Mediteranu pa i na Balkanu na kraju krajeva, što onih unutrašnjih, dakle, raspored migranata, politika azila, takozvane kvote i sve ono što su, dakle, oni su negde orijentisane protiv istočnih država, protiv višegradske grupe koja se protivi prijemu migranta na svoju teritoriju. CDA, hrišćansko-demokratski apel, to je praktično glavna hrišćansko-demokratska partija tokom hladnog rata je bila jedan od dva stuba politike u Holandiji, ona je članica EPP-a. Ona, zanimljivo također, naglašava slične teme kao i liberalna VVD koja će biti stožer vlasti buduće, što ona također zalaže za zajedničku bezbednost koju čita pre svega kao kontrolu spoljnih granica, što opet se dotiče migrantskog pitanja. Te dve partije će gotovo izvesno biti u novoj koaliciji, pošto pored njih još dve partije su u tekućim pregovorima za novu vladu. Partija rada, koja je najveći gubitnik ovih izbora, to je možda najveća priča zapravo na izborima, to je socijaldemokratska klasična partija levog centra, stari levi establishment koji Holandija ima. Ona je sa 25%, pa 5% glasala na izborima i nekako je preživjela. Ona ima svoj fokus na zaposlenosti i suzbijanju poreske evazije. Gledajući to iz leve perspektive, želite da kaznite velike korporacije koje koriste pre svega Irsku i Luksemburg kao poreske rajeve i želite da taj novac koji oni provlače kroz međunarodne tokove novca prosto oporezujete i da u socijalnu sferu, socijalno zbrinjavanje možete taj novac da upumpate. Četvrta partija je partija za prava životinja, mada se na holandskom u originalu zove partija za životinje, jer to je malo rogobatan termin, makar za nas. Ona se zalaže za prestanak integracije po dubini. Također, poput partije rada, zalaže se za suzbijanje poreske evazije i prihvat migranata, ali uređen. Dakle, kvote bez ilegalne migracije, bez talasa koji nadiru kroz šengenski sistem. I četvrta grupa stranaka su stranke koje žele integraciju po dubini, vrlo grubo rečeno za federalizaciju Europske unije, za kompletiranje bankarske unije, za kompletiranje monetarnog poretka. To su pre svega demokrati 66 koji su dobro prošli na izborima, pokupili su još nekoliko mandata i sad imaju, čini mi se, 18 i gotovo izvesno će biti deo nove koalicije, kao i zeleno-levi. Dakle, te dve partije plus CDA plus VVD će najizvesnije formirati, to su pregovori koji su u toku i verovatno ne pre juna se nećemo vidjeti rezultate svega toga. D66 je treći klasična levo-liberalna partija, ali možda klasična evrofederalna partija, ona je članica ALDE grupe liberalnih partija u Europskom parlamentu i u suštini njene poruke što se tiče Evrope su negde očekivane za partiju iz tog kola. Dakle, zanimljivo je da je treba da se zalaže za uvođenje Senata Europske unije koji bi zamenio sve formate Saveta Europske unije kako se on sastaje. Dakle, demokratizacija Europske unije kako bi se odgovorilo na problem nedostatka komunikacije između evropskog demosa koji faktički ne postoji, ali se makar pretvaramo nekad da postoji, ono što je kolega Schut govorio. I, dakle, ne da se vrate nadležnosti nacionalnih država, nego da se demokratizuju, da se prošire, da se približe institucije Europske unije običnom građaninu. Zeleno-levi su verovatno najveći dobitnici ovih izbora. Oni su Njih vodi jedan harizmatični mladi Jesse Clover, čovjek koji liči na kanadskog premijera i negdje je vrlo popularan medijski, koji uspeve da kroz optimizam, tako da vjerojatno pokupi dobar deo glasača partije rada i da prosto postavi se u poziciju da bude četvrta partija na vlasti u novom kabinetu. I ako se taj kabinet ostvari, imat ćemo dve partije iz liberalnog, obe partije zapravo iz liberalne grupe iz Aldea, jednu koja će biti iz EPP-a, to je CDA, i jednu koja će biti, Grön Lix je, mislim, članica te nordijske levičarske grupe. Dakle, makar tri ideološka pravca će biti zastupljena na novoj vladi i prosto je teško vidjeti na kom će se nivou politika tu susreti i na kojim će temama čija politika odneti prevagu, pošto će koalicija biti nešto se mora prosto prevazići, neke će teme morati budu klonjene u stranu, tek ćemo vidjeti, dakle, holandska politika kako će se odnositi prema dubini integracije i prema širini integracije i prosto kakva će reperkusija imati na ostatak evropske politike. Sad, kako sam već rekao, mediji, pre svega oni anglofoni koje mi najčešće pratimo, su bili fokusirani na Wildersa i kako on nije ostvario rezultat kojeg bi ga stavio na prvo mesto, onda bi uziko olakšanja. Pa su komentari, pre svega iz Brisela od Junckera, od ostalih zajedničaka, bili u tom smislu da je izborni rezultat nova potvrda toga da desni populisti u Evropu ne dolaze na vlast posle austrijskih izbora. Vidjet ćemo šta će francuski izbori da kažu u nedelju, pa tamo za par nedelja sljedećih. Dakle, iz vizure Brisela sve se čini normalno. To će biti neka koalicija, uglavnom partije iz mainstreama, bez nekih posebnih lutanja, odnosno Holandija nije problem za evropski mainstream. To je negde poruka koju smo mogli čuti iz Brisela. Ono što sam rekao da ću reći na kraju, to je, čini se glavna tema, prosto je kolaps tradicionalnog levog centra. Znači, socijaldemokratske partije rada koja je izgubila, ona je vrlo rano, pre 3-4 godine pokazala znake da drastično pada njena podrška, upravo zbog toga što je pomenut gospodin Dijsselbloem, koji je ministar financija Holandije, koji je član partije rada, koji je predsjednik Eurogrupe, dakle tela koje okuplja ministra financija, članica Eurozone, i koji je se pokazao zapravo kao neki fiskalni konzervativac i koji je postao popularan i poznat u sukobima sa Janisom Varoufakisom prvoj polovini 2015. godine, kada se sukobili nova grčka vlada Sirizina sa prosto Evropskom unijom.
O posledicama izbora na evropsku politiku možemo u drugom krugu da bismo ispoštovali i goste.
Znači, ostaje pitanje da li će se u Britaniji ponoviti to. Laburisti su veoma slabi i Tereza May sad najavila izbora i čini se da ona ide ka tome da ih smrvi. Socijalisti u Francuskoj, Hollande vrlo slab, Benoît Hamon se kotira sve lošije i lošije i kako stvari idu i ta levica će vjerojatno doživjeti debakl na izborima. Nemačka se čini izuzetkom, SPD je jači dolaskom Schulza, mada je to posljedna priča, do izbora je jako mnogo ostaje. Ono što je meni zanimljivo, sad kad uđemo u detalje, tiče se opet Dijsselbloema. Kad on prestane bude ministar financija, što će desiti stvaranje nove vlade, pitanje je ko će predsjedavati Eurogrupom. On je smatran socijalistom i tamo se gleda maltene kao jugoslovenski republički ključ da sve budu zastupljeni. Verovatno će španski ministar de Guindos, koji je član Partido Popular, koji je desničar, koji je iz južnih država, dobiti to mesto, što će negde pomeriti balans snaga još više prema EPP-u, kao glavnoj stranci vladajuće koalicije, koja već kontroliše čitav niz drugih institucija i to je možda najava također nastavka fiskalno konzervativne politike Eurogrupe. Za ostalo svakako možemo u daljem razgovoru. Hvala.
Dobar dan, dame i gospodo, vaše ekscelencije, uvažene kolege. Fenomen Wilders je poprilično jasan, već sam po sebi reč je o čoveku koji je značajna pojava i ja bih rekao najkoloritnija pojava na desnom političkom polu, čak i u odnosu na političare koji nekakvim standardnim uzusima možemo stavljati njemu zbog poput Marine Le Pen ili Norberta Hofera, a kamoli u odnosu na ono što uniformno zovemo bez uvrede ili kolokvijalno briselskom administracijom. Dakle, kao što rekao, on je izuzetno koloritna pojava sve što govori i radi u potpunoj koliziji sa političkom kulturom jedne zemlje kakva je Holandija, koja, moram reći, do rigidnosti insistira na kompromisu, konsenzusu, političkoj korektnosti i nekonfliktnosti. Wilders opet radikalno maršira sa svojim stavovima, ja bih rekao, čak ponekad koristi i skandalozan rečnik. Islam je tema svih tema, on je čovek čija partija ima jednu stranicu programa i ona je anti-islamizam i njegova top tema i sve se svodi na anti-islamizam. Isto tako, zaprimetite je da Wilders izbegava rodnu i seksualnu diskriminaciju u samoj Holandiji, što negde ipak govori da je donekle reči i o njegovom političkom proračunu, ali pri tome ne izbegava da, kako on to kaže, potkači neautohtone, odnosno neautohtonu populaciju u Holandiji, i otuda možemo se setiti njegove izjave o marokanskom đubretu, ako se ne varam. Ono što je jako bitno i što ga razdvaja od drugih političara sa desnog pola jeste činjenica, svi insistiraju na tome da Wilders nema koalicioni kapacitet, Wilders ne želi koalicioni kapacitet. Wildersu nije potrebna vlast kao Marine Le Pen ili Norbertu Hoferu u Austriji. Naprosto, on, ostajući relativno na margini sa svojim stavovima, ostaje privlačan za deo biračkog tela, a bilo kakvo participiranje u vlasti oduzelo bi mu deo te privlačnosti. Moram reći da Wilders nije prvi koji je u holandski politički život ili javnost, kako god hoćete, uveo ovakav vokabular ili ovako problematičan vokabular ili kako god ga nazvali. Wildersov prethodnik Pim Fortuyn je krajem 90-ih prvi načeo nedozvoljene teme, ali ako me sećanje dobro vara, on je pre svega bio orijentisan na kritiku samozadovoljne leve inteligencije, a tek potom su dolazili ksenofobija i islam. Wilders je nešto sasvim drugačije, već samim rođenjem, rođen na jugu Holandije, dakle u najsiromašnijem delu jedne bogate zemlje. On je poreklom katolik u dominantno protestantskom kalvinističkom okruženju, čak pomalo ironično ima i indonežanskih korena, zbog čega su ga u mladosti zvali, neka mi ne bude zamereno, ali takav je izraz, nigerom. Wilders sebe doživljava kao outsidera i to mu daje komparativnu prednost u odnosu na klasičan holandski politički establishment i čini mi se izaziva priličnu konfuziju kod tog establishmenta. Njegov trenutak, naravno, kao i ostalih političara desnog pola, ja ovde čujem često izraz populisti, o tome bi se moglo raspravljati, dakle opozit populistima bi bili elitisti, ali možda nekom drugom prilikom, o tome ja ne vidim u Briselu mnogo elite. U svakom slučaju njegov trenutak dolazi 11. septembra nakon terorističkih napada, kao i većine ostalih desnih političara u Njujorku i Vašingtonu, i on tog trenutka može da da u punoj meri odušak svojim radikalnim stavovima. Njegovi su govori kratki, eksplozivni, upečatljivi. Delimično je to deo njegove agende, a delimično, i budimo iskreni, možda i nedovoljnog obrazovanja. U svakom slučaju, on je majstor regrutovanja mase i kao takav postao je internacionalni fenomen i zato ga razlikujemo ne samo od Marka Rutea, nego čak i od političara, kao što rekao, njemu bliskih ideoloških stavova i moram reći da je svojim stavovima privukao i najapskurnije pokrete svetske politike od izraelskih desnih partija do američkog evangelističkog undergrounda. Povezuje ih, naravno, ideološki fanatizam i čini mi se im nimalo ne smeta Wildersov izraženi sekularizam. U svakom slučaju, dame i gospodo, on je predizborni narativ pomerio u velikoj meri, tako da je premijer Mark Rutte morao da u dobroj meri koriguje svoj vokabular. Uostalom, svi pamtimo njegovu izjavu nakon izbora da je poražen dobar populizam, kasnije to nešto pokušano da se objasni prilično nespretno. Geert Wilders je naterao pobednika da radikalizuje retoriku i definitivno preusmerio holandsku političku scenu ka svojoj agendi. Da li to znači da zemlja kao što je Holandija ide ka segregaciji? Ne, nikako, daleko od toga. Da li to znači da je otvorio identitetska i nacionalna pitanja? Svakako. Hvala vam.
It's fascinating to see, as a political correspondent, when I worked in The Hague, it took a while before I started to understand that the parliamentary debates can be interesting in itself, but the outcome is always clear. The coalition wins, right? The coalition has a majority, and they have plans, and they try to get those plans through Parliament. When do they make these plans? During what we call the formation. So when this coalition is being formed. That is right now. And actually that is when the most important decisions, except for the ones that are made in Brussels anyway, as the speaker, as Melvin Schutt just explained, but for the decisions that are made about Holland, and the budget is of course very important, where do we spend taxpayers' money to, is those decisions are made during the formation. We as journalists cannot be there, right? This is behind closed walls. Even though we all know that those decisions and those deliberations and negotiations are the most important for Dutch politics. So what do? We hang around the places where they discuss. So we're with a big group of journalists, even journalists like me who only write, I'm not, we just hang out there because we know it happens there. And it's almost symbolical, because why would I be there? Because if they come out, they give like very short lines to television crews, right? Formation is going quite okay, or not very okay, or we'll see how long this will take. And sometimes this is, they make some deliberate remarks that if you are like a Kremlin watcher, if you really know how to watch those coalitions, because you did that for 30 years, maybe you can make some sense about what they say. But it's complicated. So the biggest prize for journalists is, maybe this gets a little bit off your question, but the biggest prize for journalists is to have some contacts in that room, right? They change from the people that help them. Hey, you have the politicians, you have some assistants, sometimes they're in the room, sometimes they're not. They know how to bribe us. If they give us a little detail, even if it's only like we had black liquid on the table, that's actually how my competitor from the Volkskrant, another newspaper, beat us. They had this very small little detail. Then this paper will maybe give something back. Tell the story of this party more than the story of the other party. Those parties also want to be in a certain light in the newspapers. On the other hand, the politicians know if we say too much to journalists and it's too spinned, it's too colored, then we will never get to a government. And in the end, we tend to think that politicians are responsible people and want to have a government that governs our country and can instruct ambassadors and, the whole shebang. But thanks for the question, because it's very complicated. And we very often are not that's an important point. We as journalists are sometimes not honest enough by saying that this one accord, this agreement they will come with, is the most important political document for the following 2, 3, or maybe 4 years. Why don't we do that? Because we're not there when it was made. We are there when the Parliament discusses, so we make those debates the most important.
Well, as they say, predictions are hard, particularly about the future. So I don't have an easy answer to that. I do think that we could complicate the question a little bit and make it a little bit more difficult, and hence the possible answers would also be greater in number. I think that one thing you should understand about the Dutch government is that it is not simply, as my colleague pointed out, it's not simply a majority system where you have a coalition, as you might have, although that's very exceptional in the UK. Then you command a majority in Parliament, and decisions are made in Parliament. Decisions are basically made in the Netherlands for historical reasons behind closed doors. This is another reason for discontent amongst a large part of the population. Now, the most important closed-door moment is, in fact, as Peter pointed out, during the formation of the government. There have been discussions in the last couple of years about the extent to which the agreement that is reached during that initial phase should be detailed. So arguments have been put forth by many people that perhaps the agreements were too detailed. Now, I think this is an important discussion relevant to the question because if you have multiple parties necessary to form a majority, not just in the lower house, but also arguably in the upper house, as I pointed out earlier in my talk, the upper house has become increasingly politicized, and it's hence broadly recognized nowadays that governments need majorities in both the lower house and the upper house. If you have the need for so many parties to agree, rather than make an agreement that is extremely detailed, as has been the habit in the past, you can also decide to have an agreement that is perhaps detailed or binding on a couple of fundamental issues, and to be more flexible when it comes to other issues. And that will allow you to make deals along the way in ways that cannot be foreseen when you're forming the government. And this is in fact what has happened in the last couple of years as well. You might say that given the new instability in the Dutch political situation, which leads to the need for coalitions that have more than two parties, there is a new practice forming of making a basic agreement on fundamental issues and then allowing more flexibility on these other issues. And if that is followed, and of course I don't know whether that will be followed this time, but it does not seem unreasonable that that would happen, and that would allow for the flexibility, I think, to give the government a good chance to actually survive for a long time.
Ja bih gospodina Igrutinovića zamolio, zaustavio sam vas tamo negde gde, kad ste počeli da pričate o posledicama tih holandskih izbora na evropsku politiku, i ono što bih možda ja, pokušavajući da napravim nekakvu paralelu opet sa nama ovde, izlaznost na holandskim izborima 82%, u Srbiji 55%, šta nam to jednostavno govori? Da li je tamo su građani bili pred većim izborom pa su morali da se odazovu većem broju, da li je to stvar već parlamentarne, kažemo, vaspitanja, demokratskog vaspitanja, ili je u pitanju nešto potpuno treće?
Pa, deo odgovora se krije svakako u našem biračkom spisku koji možda ne reflektuje verno prisutne punoletne građane, prosto nije, verovatno nije ažuran, u kojoj meri, prosto teško je reći. Verovatno izlaznost kod nas nešto veća nego što statistika pokazuje, jer građana prosto nema više, nema ih toliko koliko birački spisak kaže. S druge strane, izvesno da je do kulture, možda je vrlo gruba reč i neuhvatljiva, ali na prošlim izborima je bila 74%, sada je 82%. Dakle, ona se drži tu negde na prilično visokom nivou koji mi nismo, mislim, videli odavno. Kod nas su oko 60 nešto procenata su bile maksimalna izlaznost pre 10-15 godina, mislim, 2000 možda nešto bila veća. Ali sigurno oslikava jednu vrstu navike. Ovi izbori su bili radnog dana. Nisu bili u nedelju, kod nas je običaj da se idu u nedelju da bi se cijel dan moglo rasporediti kad će se ići. Ovo je bio radni dan, ljudi rade tog dana, nisu oslobođeni radnih obaveza. Pre-podne na pauzi za ručak, posle podne odu, izglasaju i njih oko 80% to uradi. Tako da gotovo sigurno slikava odnos prema parlamentarnom životu, prema strankama i političkom životu u cijelini. Verovatno, mislim, meni je bilo zanimljivo gledati kampanju, gledati postere. Imate jedan, u gradovima su okačeni posteri na kojima su zajednički grupisani kandidati, slika glavnog vodećeg kandidata nosilaca liste sa partijskim logom i njih tako 20-ak nabacano na jednom bilbordu i to je to. Nema grafičke zastupljenosti kao što je živahne, kao što je bila kod nas, negde je to sve na nivou koji mi nisam, tako da verovatno jeste do političke kulture, opet koristim taj termin, iako je rogobatan, ali prosto evolucija parlamentarnog života je tekla negde drugačije kod njih kod nas i mislim da su to dve glavne razlike, znači dugoročna stvar kulture, ali opet ponavljam i verovatno birački spisak koji je kod nas takav kakav je.
How do they incorporate apparently the unease or sometimes just open opposition against them? And do they do that by policies? Because that's your question, right? Which policies do we expect? Or do they do it by the rhetoric? That is an open question. What do I expect? Well, it's difficult we call it in Holland integration. So how to deal with supposedly intolerant minorities, right? How tolerant or intolerant should you be as a government, as a nation, towards minorities that have different views on many things or do not want to what we call integrate, like assimilate, right? There are not so many policies to play with. And what is also complicated is that maybe some Dutch people here completely disagree, so that will be interesting. They've already done quite a lot of things. A lot of policies has been enacted. We even had for many years a minister or secretary of integration, somebody whose job it was to integrate those, to assimilate those minorities. So a lot of things are different from the time when Pim Fortuyn arrived. Even though, as Melvin Schutt pointed out, the unease with those minorities is still there. The voters who vote for the parties that say we should really do something about this and we don't want to have more immigrants dumped on us. That's a quote from Melvin. So I don't know exactly. I don't expect big changes, but that's also because there will be a center government, right? So I don't expect big changes. But it is interesting to see how they try to get those seats back, those votes back of disgruntled voters. Because they're there. Well, we already discussed that, right? I agree with that. I can see the numbers and I can see that many people voted for parties that say Holland is under threat and things are not so wonderful as the governing parties try to tell us.
Vratio bih se na pitanje za Melvina oko kog se vrtimo, ali prosto on je negde i priveo kraju svoje izlaganje ukazivanjem na dugoročno mogući problem u činjenici što slično ovome što imamo u Srbiji, na primjer, da se pred svake izbore retorika prilagođava potrebama, očekivanjima birača, uslovno rečeno klizi ka nečemu što možete nazvati populizmom ili demokratskim nastojanjima ljudi i tako dalje, a da onda kad i što političari prihvate da bi dobili izbore, a onda nakon toga nastave sa politikom uglavnom kao da se ništa pre toga nije dešavalo ili vrlo malo idu u pravcu koji narod traži na izborima. Dakle, ovde konkretno govorim pre svega o pitanjima imigracije i asimilacije. Podsjetio bih da 2010. godine smo negde imali faktički proglašenje na nivou Evrope kraja priča o multikulturalizmu u kome se smatralo da imigrantska populacija može da živi na neki način u segregacijskim delovima, da odbija da se integriše, da prosto gradi svoj paralelni sistem. Imate, recimo, u Holandiji i priča o TV kanalima koje emituju na arapskom jeziku i tako dalje, i tako dalje. U Nemačkoj velika diskusija oko turske populacije. I ono što smo imali 2010. godine, to je proglašenje kraja i početka pritisaka na neki način na manjinske populacije u Evropi da se integrišu ili de facto asimiluju, što je opet samo po sebi vrlo problematično pitanje na neki način. Pitanje za Melvina, kako on vidi prosto tu razliku između retorike i prakse s druge strane i u kom će pravcu zaista to ići u narednom periodu, jer kao što vidimo u poslednje 2 godine imigrantsko pitanje je zaista dovelo pred, na neki način svršen čini i dovelo u pitanje samo opstanak Evropske unije, između ostalog, kao što znamo, i Brexit je velikim delom tumači kao posledica pritiske imigracije. Još jednom hvala svima, izvinjavam se što sam uzeo malo više vremena sad.
Thank you for asking such a simple question. As you may have noticed, when I posed basically that question at the end of my talk, I didn't answer it, and I think for good reasons, because it's of course a very difficult question. Nonetheless, I think we can say something based on the situation as it is at present. So if you look at the present has multiple possible futures, and we are a part of the future or the present. We can make the future to some extent. So what is the present situation? Well, I think the present situation is one, is certainly in the Netherlands, where the establishment, to call it that, is extremely unwilling to change. Now, if you're on the other side of the argument, then you might say, in fact, changes have been made to immigration policy. Changes have been made curtailing multiculturalism. There has been in the Netherlands, as in other European countries, a very odd policy for a long time of the idea of assimilating migrants whilst allowing them to keep their own identity, which, if you know how to square that particular circle, please let me know. But something, or actually multiple things have been done about that. So certain things have been done. But I think in general, the truth would be that the establishment is unwilling to change on migration, it's unwilling to change on the European Union, it's unwilling to change within the European Union on the euro. They're basically happy with their consensus model. They're very proud of their consensus model, and many people would say that they have good reasons to be proud of their consensus model. After all, the Netherlands is a very wealthy country, highly educated, prosperous, and so on, fairly safe. So if I were in the establishment, I would say, why change? So looking at that, I think the establishment is going to resist change as they have. I think that the ordinary voter is increasingly going to be dissatisfied with this, because the main concerns of the quote-unquote populists, namely migration and also increasingly the euro and the cost of the euro, they will become more apparent to people, it will become more pressing, and I think they will become worse, you might say, in size, because of the transfer union that will be necessary to maintain the euro, and also because of the continuing pressure on the borders of the European Union from third world migration. And then the question is, what will happen? What will happen is, I think, a continuation of the present, namely there will be more votes for populist parties. I think the mainstream parties will continue to try to deflect that by adopting more of the rhetoric of populist parties. But at some point there will be either a change of the government, that is to say, the establishment parties will finally, in a significant way, lose out, and there is going to be a significant concession to populist concerns, also in policy. Or Well, I think the Netherlands will fundamentally change. I think that this is an idea that was very much present in the election of the American voter when they voted for Mr. Trump. The idea was, I think, amongst a lot of Americans that if they did not put a stop to illegal mass immigration now, then the America that they would have known would forever be gone. It would be a point of no return. I think that this may also play a role in the French election and the possible election of Marine Le Pen. There may be people who think, I don't like this particular woman, but I, a citizen, am assessing right now that we're reaching a moment beyond which this country will never be again what I want it to be or what I remember it to be. I think that if the change does not happen in the Netherlands will be a fundamentally different country. And that fundamentally different country might be happy in a different way. It might also be, which is another thing that I expect, together with the digging in by the establishment. I expect huge divisions within the Netherlands. I think the country is already incredibly divided. I think the demonization that took place against Mr. Fortuyn, that then took place against Mr. Wilders, that is now taking place against Thierry Baudet, the leader of the Forum for Democracy, the intellectuals, populists, you might say. I think this is deeply, deeply troubling. I think it's also deeply troubling that it is not a national scandal in the Netherlands, that there is a democratic politician, whatever you may think of him, namely Mr. Wilders, who is living under closed guard, who is unable to move freely because he is saying things that a certain segment of the population does not want, and that this is not a national scandal, that this is not picked up, that this is not a primary concern. I would think that if you have a healthy liberal democracy, everybody in the establishment would say, doggone it, I absolutely disagree with this Mr. Wilders. I think that his rhetoric is horrible. I think he doesn't have any solutions. But it is a scandal that we're living in a country where a politician, a elected representative, a main political leader is unable to move freely. This indicates there is something wrong in this society that doesn't exist. I also see, and this is anecdotally everywhere around me, these increasing divisions in terms of rhetoric, in terms of an unwillingness to listen to opposing voices, and so on and so forth. And I see at the same time, which is quite interesting, that both on the sides of, you might say, people attracted to the establishment, people belonging to migrant communities, and people belonging to populist camps, there is a digging in, a hardening of their own positions. So you see that the next generation in particular, the next generation of migrants, but also the next generation of native Dutch, according to surveys I've read, they have either a more hardcore populist, pro-Wilders, anti-immigration sentiment amongst the younger members, or amongst the migrants there is a more fundamentalist, pro-Muslim, unwilling to compromise segment. So all of that, these two things, the unwillingness of the establishment to make fundamental compromises because they think they are right, and again they have good reasons to think that they are right, and on the other hand the increasing demonization that is accompanied by that, and the growth amongst the next generation for both Muslim fundamentalism and you might say nationalist parties. I think this makes for a very unhappy future unless the Netherlands fundamentally changes because of mass migration, because of the increased federalization of the European Union, and essentially ceases to exist as a polity as we now know it. That's also a possibility.
I za kraj sam ostavio samo još jedan citat, jednu analizu u kojoj se kaže, Rute u protekle 4 godine se provukao sa nepopularnim merama štednje, ali se oporavak privrede Holandije ubrzava i nezaposlenost brzo opada. Čini mi se za nas ovde u Srbiji, gosti iz Holandije, ne znam da li su upoznati, ali meni se odmah nametnulo ono da zamenim gospodina Rutea za gospodina Vučića, Holandiju za Srbiju, i onda bi vest bila: Vučić se u protekle 4 godine provukao s nepopularnim merama štednje, ali se oporavak privrede Srbije ubrzava i nezaposlenost brzo opada. Tu vest čitamo svaki dan u našim novinama i videli smo da je najveća žrtva u Holandiji zapravo bio, osim u Ninu, videli smo da je najveća žrtva zapravo u Holandiji da su bili laburisti, iako je neko drugi verovatno forsirao mere štednje, ja verujem da će tako biti u Srbiji, iako je neko drugi forsirao mere štednje, da će neko drugi da bude najveća žrtva na ovim izborima, i nažalost to je jedina sličnost između Srbije i Holandije. Postoji mnogo razlika, jedna od njih je da Holandija svake godine izveze poljoprivrednih proizvoda i prerađevina za više od 80 milijardi evra, što je 2,5 puta više od bruto domaćeg proizvoda Srbije. To sam se setio kada sam vidio gospodina Gorana Nikolića u publici, pa sam hteo i jedan ekonomski podatak za kraj, jer smo dosta pričali o političkim, socijalnim, demografskim i tako dalje i migranskim pitanjima. Hvala vam još jednom što ste prisustvovali još jednom u nizu diskusija na temu godine izbora, i ovo će zaista biti jedna godina izbora i gledat ćemo se još. Hvala vam puno.